everyone, and welcome. Good morning. My name is Danielle McNichol, and I have the privilege of being General Counsel and the Director of the Center for Leadership here at Newman University. At this time, I would like to call to the podium, please, our esteemed President, Dr. Rosalie Miranda.
It is Danny who is the esteemed person here on this campus. I'm so grateful to you, Danny. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning to everyone. Good morning. I'm Rosalie Miranda, the president here at Newman University, and just joyful in being able to welcome each and every one of you and to introduce this incredibly important, relevant program for our county and all of us within it. Newman University has just reached its 50th year. So I wanted to do a little commercial here about Newman. 50 years. We graduated our first group in 1967, and there were 7 of them. This year we graduated just last Saturday, and we had 682 graduates at every level of education: doctoral, master's, baccalaureate, and associate. And one of our newest programs, you may have seen some marketing out there, is the online program, totally online, that we have now for an undergraduate degree in public safety administration. It's one of our newest efforts, both in terms of program and also in terms of format and pedagogy, because it is totally online. So I guess for people like me, I have to admit that technology is truly a benefit and truly a blessing. We're grateful about that. But we welcome you to Newman, and I want you to know that you are welcome here anytime. We have wonderful programming throughout the year. The Center for Leadership under Danny's guidance will have incredibly wonderful programs as the weeks and months unfold. And we have terrific performing arts programs here. We're the home of the Delaware County Symphony and many other performing arts groups who have their home in Delaware County, but who use our facility as their home base for their programs. So do pay attention to Newman and its future, its journey, and come and enjoy whatever is here that is attractive and relevant to you. We welcome you. I'm very pleased today, and very proud too, for Newman University to be a part of the Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety. This Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety include organizations such as the Delaware County Council, the Delaware County District Attorney's Office, the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce, and Newman University, actually through its Center for Leadership. So they are the partners that make up this partnership. We know that this is a wonderful pioneering event for us, but one that you can trust we will continue into the future. I would like to personally thank our county council, our district attorney's office, our public safety officials, our first responders, our elected officials for partnering together with us to provide these free educational forums to our citizens here, to the employees of the county, to residents and to students in our region. It is through their fantastic efforts and expertise that our constituents will be better prepared if and when tragedy strikes. Thanks to the experience, to the expertise, the resources and talents of our county's public safety agencies, our business community, our diverse and dynamic workforce, we can work together to create awareness and establish points of access for safety and security information and resources. This event today, Planning and Preparing for an Active Shooter, is one of 4 free educational summits that will be held by the Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety throughout the next year to provide such a public forum for information sharing, for resources and training on threats to our community. So please be attentive to communications about those programs that are forthcoming, and we're grateful that you are here today with us. So I thank you for your participation in this very important initiative, and Newman University looks forward to the ongoing success of this partnership. And now, you want the real person up here to get going with our program. And so I would like to introduce formally to you Danielle McNichol, Esquire, who is Newman University's General Counsel and the Director of our Center for Leadership. And in her short time here, with a long-term future, Newman University is already influenced so positively by her leadership. So please help me invite back up Danny McNichol.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. Miranda. What a fantastic leader for this organization and for all of the things she's done. We can't thank her enough. Today's presentation, everyone, is being live streamed at www.newmanpublicsafety.com. So welcome to those of you that are present here in the audience and to those of you as well that are watching online today. The presentation materials that you'll be seeing today, as well as the actual presentation itself, will be available to you on the Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety website for future reference or use with your organizations and for training. I would like to draw your attention to the agenda and the one-page handout that we have provided to you, so that when we're discussing the points of access and the opportunity for information, if you could go to the side, you'll see Connect With, Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety. Of course, our three partners, Newman University, Delaware County Council, and the District Attorney's Office, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, and we thank them all very much. Specifically, you'll be able to see on here the hashtag for Newman Safety. You'll be at Newman Safety for Twitter. We have the Facebook page with the World Wide Web, and you're also able to scan, if necessary, the information that you have. What's important about that is that as these forums continue, we will provide to you updates about different forums. We will be able to provide you materials as well as other summits, forums, and public safety information or tips that we think might be relevant to you and to your organizations. So as we were talking about the partnership, the critical piece to this is the educational component and the one location for the county and for the District Attorney's Office to be able to provide everyone the educational materials that you would need for these types of public safety events. Turning to our partners, without the guidance, knowledge, and dedication of the Delaware County individuals, organizations, and folks that are passionate about public safety and the importance to educate the residents, the students, and the employees of Delaware County and this region as a whole. I would be remiss if I did not thank very specifically each one of those partners. Our first partner is Delaware County Council. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you our Council Chairman, Mira Severa, who's here. To give you a brief introduction on Chairman Severa, he has been a public servant for 41 years to Delaware County in various levels of government. His dedication from starting in 1974 as the Upper Darby Board of Commissioner to then be elected at the House of Representatives in many leadership capacities, including Appropriations Chair, and then finally being elected to Delaware County Council. Chairman Severa is a lifelong resident of Delaware County and a small business owner in the county. Thank you so much for your assistance, and please welcome Chairman Severa.
Good morning. Thank you, Newman, for allowing us, the county government, and our partners to come in this morning and have a conversation with you. Before I start, let me just give you a little bit brief about Delaware County Council. A lot of us sometimes, because we're associated with local municipalities and we're so close to the city of Philadelphia, that there's confusion comes in that Delaware County and the council controls school districts and controls all different municipalities, which is not the case in Delaware County. We are a county of 49 municipalities. We are term limited. We run for an 8-year period, and then we're asked to leave. I have 15 months left on my term, which I've already served 6.5. We're made up of 5, and we run at large throughout the county. And we're, like I said to you, every 8 years that cycle changes. This morning we're here to talk about public safety, and we have made some real leaps and bounds with that because we partnered with the District Attorney's Office. Let me make it clear, our District Attorney is one that we're very proud of, and that office that we're very proud of. And county government works very closely with the District Attorney. Not only do we work as sharing policy together, we share and we fund different parts that needs to happen through that District Attorney and law enforcement. We're very active in obtaining state and federal grants so we can help the District Attorney do what they need to do, and that's to protect our citizens of the county. Back in 2012, we had an incident that everybody remembers as far as it was for Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, in Connecticut and Sandy Hook. We had a tragedy that took place that took out so many students. It was a tragedy that just went through the nation, and it was something of shocking and reality came back to each and every one of us as we sit in this auditorium and learn how to protect ourselves and how to protect our businesses in Delaware County and our institutions. Immediately, right after that incident took place, that Sunday, we got the Delaware County Intermediate Unit, as well as the county executives and the District Attorney, and we met at the Delaware County Intermediate Unit because now everybody was concerned about their child when they left the home, when they got on the school bus and they went into the school, if an active shooter was to come into that building and what would happen in Delaware County. Well, it was a simple situation. It was a simple situation that we all stood around the table, and we needed to have known that those schools in our county would be protected. That an instant an active shooter arrived in that school, that there would be an alarm that would be pushed and would directly to 911, and nothing interfered with that. Once that mechanism got into the 911 center, there was no conversation on a phone. There was no conversation to a police department. They were dispatched and they went. And they went and they got into the building to protect the children. And basically, we drive every single day in Delaware County because our business agenda for Delaware County is the economic drive of the county. Because we want to protect our businesses, we want to promote our businesses, and we need to secure the jobs that the county needs for the 550,000 residents that live in the county. Our agenda here is to work within the individual municipalities and their police department, as well as the district attorney. And you'll see today, as we point out, because what I have just said, what happened with the schools, and Del Pass and all that technology that took place. It took us 3 years to put it into place, but it works. We test it every year, and I'm telling you, both in the parochial and in the public school system, we have a safety in Delaware County. Out of all the 67 counties in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we were the first to achieve that. And it works. It works. We've had twice an incident that took place, the alarm goes off. So today, we're going to share what the local police department has, what the district attorney office has, and how we can protect an institution like this, and how we can protect you in the business place. So with all the forms of government working together, this is what we hope to accomplish. And to bring a group like this together today, Danielle, I thank you so much. It's interesting to see, because you're interested in learning what we have to say to you. This is something that all forms of government have to participate. And when I say all forms of government, the federal, the state, and the local municipalities, which is the counties. There are monies that come through Homeland Security, that come into the individual counties, that need to be obtained to make these items work. You'll see today Jack Whalen will outline to you what he has accomplished as a district attorney. And you'll learn today what the county and what the future of the county is to be when it comes to public safety. Our communications with the local municipalities, what our mayors, what our board of commissioners, whatever the form of government is, we communicate. The 34 police departments that we have in Delaware County, we communicate. With our fire, with our EMS, this is all one family that comes in together and puts it together, and this locomotive now is going to leave the station. Because now we need to lead the way as far as what we are concerned as elected officials and to provide the public safety that this county needs. So I thank you for allowing me to speak for a few moments, and I hope this becomes a very educational part of today's activities, and I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chairman Severa. And you can see and understand just how critical of a partner they are and how much they've done for the county and how much we'll continue to do together. I would now like to introduce Trish McFarland, President of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. Ms. McFarland has served as President of the Chamber since March of 2015. President McFarland brings more than a decade of experience in various business leadership, marketing, government, and public affairs positions across various levels of business in private and not-for-profit. President McFarland serves on numerous not-for-profit boards, as well as coaching girls basketball for the Springfield Athletic Association and Holy Child Summer Leagues. President McFarland resides with her husband Dan and 3 daughters in Springfield. Please welcome President McFarland.
Thanks, Danny. That was a fun introduction. As Danny mentioned, my name is Trish McFarland, and I am the president of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. As the wife of a police officer and the mom of 3 young girls, this is an important issue to all of us. And as the voice of the business community, this is something we need to think about, prepare for, and ask the tough questions about how to plan. The Chamber is proud to partner and proud to be a partner in this initiative with County Council, the District Attorney's Office, and Newman University. Most important, I would like to thank Danny McNichol and Tim Boyce, who took this idea and side conversation of putting this together and bringing this partnership to light, and this is actually happening today. So I hope everybody takes something away from today. I know we're all here for different reasons, but hopefully you take it and you can plan for something we never have to deal with, but we have it in case we need it. Thank you.
Thank you, President McFarland. Finally, I'd like to introduce Delaware County District Attorney Jack Whalen. District Attorney Whalen is a respected attorney with more than 25 years of practicing attorney and a civil litigator. Before his election to District Attorney in 2012, District Attorney Whalen served as chairman of the Delaware County Council from 2005 through 2012. As District Attorney and Chief Law Enforcement Officer of Delaware County, District Attorney Whalen has taken the lead on many public safety initiatives. A few of those programs include the Anti-Violence Task Force with a mission to provide collaborative programs and resources to assist the community in recognizing and reporting crimes, the expansion of the Senior Exploitation Unit, and the Delaware County Heroin Task Forces. District Attorney Whalen resides in Ridley Township with his wife and their 4 children. Please welcome District Attorney Jack Whalen.
Thank you very much. It's always great to be at Newman University. I want to thank Dr. Miranda, Danielle McNichol, our partners in this endeavor, the Chamber of Commerce, Allied Barton, certainly the law enforcement members that are here with us today. On Saturday, I was in Washington. That's probably not what you think. My daughter was graduating from college, and she graduated from Catholic University. Right before she graduated, she asked me if I would give her a graduation trip, and that was a trip to Ireland. I was kind of taken back, and I was really hoping just for a dinner and a Wawa gift card. So her and her roommate were going to travel to Ireland, and yesterday, me and my wife went to the Philadelphia International Airport, and we dropped off my daughter. I went and watched her go through security. I didn't want to drop her off at the curb, like I sometimes do with other family members. So I went in and I watched her go through security. I watched her take off her boots. I watched her take off her backpack and her pocketbook and put it into the containers and go through the x-ray machine. I watched her go through the x-ray machine and then go through the body scan machine. Actually, when it was all said and done, I had breathed a sigh of relief that she was there and she had a couple hours wait before her plane was going to leave. I went to bed last night around 10 o'clock, got up at 5 o'clock this morning, put on Fox News, the national Fox News, and watched somewhat in distress as I learned that an international flight had gone down over the Mediterranean Sea. I was somewhat relieved that it wasn't a flight out of the United States of America, but then realized in horror that over 50 passengers are unaccounted for today as a result of what now is believed to be potential terrorist activity. We live in a very difficult world, and although terrorism has not been confirmed, they are looking now to see what happened to that flight, and it left from Paris on its way to Egypt. As your district attorney, I see a lot of bad things, a lot of horrible situations. A lot of people do evil things. I've been to a number of homicide scenes, seen individuals deceased from gunshot wounds, stabbings, and there's times when you sit down and you shake your head. But then you realize that these are only a few of the people, a small percentage of the people here in Delaware County that are committing these type of heinous acts. Whether it's robbery, murder, rape, burglary, or child molestation that we see all too frequently. There are very few people who do this. I take solace in the fact that it's people like you in this room, like our neighbors, that each and every day try to do the right thing, try to do good things, try to help other people. And that's what keeps us going. The partnership that we have in our communities, the partnership we have in our churches, the partnership we have here in law enforcement, our educational communities. And today, what we're looking at is issues dealing with public safety. Once we get beyond the necessities of life, which is food, water, shelter, the most important necessity is to be safe. Safe in your homes, safe in your businesses. You want to have the security that when you send your child to school in the morning, that child is going to come back safe. That child is going to come back unharmed. We need to have that feeling of security. It's the same with our colleges and universities. When we send our children, whether it's Catholic University or Newman University or Widener, we want to make sure that when that child's there, that they're safe and that they're secure. The reason that we are successful in Delaware County is because of the great partnerships that we have. Mario has just indicated that. And that's the truth. The truth of our success is the partnerships we have. And the partnerships run very deep. The partnerships in law enforcement, from our relationship in the district attorney's office, with the FBI, Homeland Security, Immigration, with our partnerships on the state level with the Pennsylvania State Police, with our partnership in the local governments, with our local municipal police. We work with them on a daily basis to make sure that we're doing everything we can that you're secure in your homes and in your businesses. We prosecute between 9,000 and 10,000 criminal cases a year. And that's on the reactive side, but we're very proactive, doing what we can to make sure that you're secure. And Mario indicated some of those programs. And we're constantly working on programs to make sure that you're safe and secure. And we will continue to do so. But there's also the partnership that we have in our communities. And that's a partnership that we have right here in this room, working together with our administrators, whether it's Newman University, Widener University, Villanova. We have 13 colleges or universities right here in Delaware County, and we have a great working relationship with all of them. But we need to do more. we're constantly looking to do more. And today, it's about a partnership with the universities, with the colleges, but also with our business community. Reaching out to our business community to let them know that they can be partners in this effort. That if they see something unusual, that if they have cameras in their systems, and they see something that they can help us with, because we all have a vested interest in protecting each other. If we cannot protect each other, law enforcement cannot do it alone. And we live, as I indicated, in a very concerning time. And in this time, the way that we can beat our enemy, the way we can defeat individuals that are trying to harm us, is that partnership, a community partnership, a law enforcement partnership, and that's what we strive to do here today. This is the beginning of a relationship to a much wider community, and that's our business community, our educational community, our law enforcement community, and certainly our residents here in Delaware County. So I thank you, I'm proud to be your district attorney, and I look forward to working with you in this worthwhile endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, District Attorney Whalen. At this time, I would just like to briefly recognize the advisory leadership group for the partnership. A few of our members are here, but I'd just like to tell you who's been part of this process and who will continue through the process with us to allow us the opportunity to grow and expand this partnership. Those groups include Charlie Bodenberger, Vice President for Allied Martin, Tim Boyce, our Homeland Security Coordinator, Warren Chambers of Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital, Chairman Mario Severa, that you've seen before, Jim Delaney, Newman University Board President, Mike Donahue, Delaware County Sheriff's Office, Leon Francis, our Director of Security here at Newman University, Mary Ann Grace, Executive Director of Delaware County, Adam Gattuso with Monroe Energy, Grant Gingrich of Crozier Keystone Health System, Senator Tom Killian, Joseph McGinn of Sunoco Logistics, Dr. Rosalie Miranda of Newman University, Deborah Mantegna of Riddle Hospital, Trish McFarland of the Chamber, Senator Tom McGarrigle, Mayor Tom McCosey, thank you, Mayor, for being here today, Tom Raftery of Falcon Consulting, James Raith, the Chairman of Thornbury Township, Mike Rank, CEO of the YMCA, Dan Ruggieri, Aston Township Chief of Police, Representative Jamie Santora, thank you, Representative Santora, for your time today, District Attorney Jack Whalen, and Robert Willard, Chairman of Ridley Township. So on behalf of the Delaware County Partnership for Public Safety, thank you for your dedication to this initiative and public safety and welfare of those of Delaware County. If we could give them a brief round of applause. Just a few quick housekeeping before we'll get the presentation started. There are 2 exits here in the front and back in the rear. Please take a moment to locate your exit and the exit that is closest to you if for any reason there's need to use them. The restrooms are located immediately outside of the theater, and we will be taking a brief break between 11 and 11:10. So if during the process you have any questions or you'd like to raise any topics that we may not have discussed, please just write a note and get the note to me. Just you can pass it to the ends of the rows, and we'll be happy to collect the questions and make sure that we incorporate it into the panel questions that we'll be doing at 11:10. If we don't answer your question, please know that you can feel free to contact us directly on Newman Public Safety, and we'll be happy to provide you with any resources that we might be able to give you. Now, today we will be talking about a very frank and matter-of-fact fashion about a very serious and troubling topic, planning and preparing for active shooter. While it's difficult, it's important to have the knowledge to be prepared if tragedy strikes. There will be active presentations on stage today with a toy orange gun for demonstration purposes only, but folks need to be aware that that's happening. There's also going to be video of a real live active shooter event that took place. I want to prepare you for that, just so you're not surprised during the actual presentation. But it's important to remember that these topics, while they're not easy to discuss and probably not easy to hear, they're necessary. Our job is to educate and prepare people if tragedy strikes. God willing, it does not, but if it does, we have to be prepared, and we're hopeful that the information that we can impart through this partnership or through the seminar today, or that you can impart to your family, friends, and community, if it can save just one life, then we've all done our job. Finally, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Apple Walnut Cafe, for their fantastic pastries and continental breakfast, the Ellis Coffee folks out there as well, and Allied Barton for allowing their experts to participate in our panel today. A special thanks to Allied Barton's President and COO Carol Johnson for being here this morning and for her dedication to safety and through attending these types of events while running a 80,000 person company. Took the time today to understand the importance of this initiative. So we thank them very much. Our first speaker today, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Our first speaker today is Rich Cordeberry. Rich Cordeberry is Vice President of National Operations Support for Allied Barton Security Services. In that role, Rich supports Allied Barton's 130 local offices in driving strategic initiatives, transitioning large startups, onboarding new leaders, as well as many other operational and human capital management programs. Rich is a frequent presenter to industry groups on topics including workplace violence, active shooter, emergency preparedness, and situational awareness. Rich joined Allied Barton in 2003, and during his tenure has served in roles including Vice President and General Manager, Vice President of Learning and Development, and Vice President of National Accounts. Prior to beginning his career in private security, Rich was a lieutenant in the Lower Merion Township Police Department. Rich is a longtime member of the American Society of Industrial Security International, as well as the Police Chiefs Association of Southeastern Pennsylvania. He also serves on the Building Owners and Managers Association, Government Liaison, and Emergency Preparedness Committees. Rich is a graduate of Cardinal O'Hara High School and Villanova University, a lifelong resident of Delaware County, and has lived in Chester Heights for the last 25 years with his wife, Vicki. Please welcome Rich Cordeberry.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone hear me okay? My original plan was to bound up onto stage. I'm 20 years past bounding, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But good morning, and thank you for attending. I'm glad to be here this morning. As the previous speakers have said, this is an extremely important topic, and a somewhat uncomfortable topic, or can be. I just want to start by thanking the folks who are supporting this program. As somebody who is a neighbor of Newman University, who's lived in Delaware County all my life, I'm extremely proud to be part of, but I'm extremely proud to be part of a county that, that thought it was important enough to put a program like this together. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of it. Anybody who has read a newspaper, watched the news, or been even marginally involved in following the news over the last 20 years knows what the term active shooter means. and because we've been following the horror, whether it's Sandy Hook or recently San Bernardino, we've been following active shooter incidents. They've become a sad part of life, right? I mean, you turn on the news any night of the week, and I hate to say it, we've become somewhat jaded to them. Only 5, only 10. We'll talk about, the active shooters intent to constantly raise the bar. But, so we're going to talk about this morning, you're going to hear from some experts from law enforcement. My job is to set the stage for them, so to speak, so that you have some information about the active shooter phenomenon, some information about what drives an active shooter, some information about how you can prepare if you've never done that before. Be helpful for me before we get started to take a very quick survey. Folks in the room, other than those who are in law enforcement, because we're going to throw off the results, how many people in here have ever participated in an active shooter, an actual drill? Okay, well that's encouraging. How many of you participate in conversations within the workplace, or roundtables, or anything, or what we call tabletops, anything like that. Okay, better yet. Okay. As far as the makeup of the room, I think I'm very pleased with the makeup of the room because we have a really good cross-section of folks in the room. How many people in the room are business owners in Delaware County, and that is, we have less than, let's just say, we have less than 25 employees. How many people is that? Okay. How many people in the room have HR responsibilities? That is, your HR manager. You have an actual HR in your title. Show of hands. Okay. How many actual, just regardless of size, business owners in the room? Okay. You are the HR department, by the way. You probably know that. How about from the higher education space? How many folks from colleges, universities, high schools? Okay. How about healthcare? Okay. How about houses of worship? You would have thought, right? Yeah. So it just gives me and it gives us an idea of kind of the audience experience, expectations, what we might say, how we might contour our remarks this morning. Again, a thank you up front to the folks from Delaware County and to Newman, Dr. Miranda, Dan, and everybody who is responsible for putting this program on. And again, that's me. So, it's a big topic, and we can't accomplish everything today. So what we've done is we've tried to put a program together that will give you information you need to get started if you haven't started, information that will reinforce what you already know if you already have a program. We'll talk about the workplace violence continuum. I'm not going to spend, workplace violence is its own topic. I do full-day workshops just on workplace violence. It's a component of the active shooter phenomenon, so to speak. The active shooters can be driven by people with issues in the workplace that can range from mental health to whatever. That is, believe me, a full-day topic. But we're going to talk about it enough just to give context to our conversation this morning, because what we're talking about a lot is the, for lack of a better term, some of the tactics around the preparation for, God forbid, an active shooter. You ever find yourself in an active shooter situation. I'm going to share with you a really interesting profile of an active shooter that you may find interesting. It changed the way I thought about active shooters. Talk about situational awareness, and then important for everybody in this room, we're going to talk about training and drills. This is the definition, you can read it, but essentially anybody who, again, if you follow the news, you know that essentially an active shooter is somebody who is killing or trying to kill you in a confined space. You'll see some video later on that kind of expands on that, but because they are getting more public and more open. But nevertheless, this is the Department of Homeland Security definition of an active shooter. It's a very big topic, and if you're wondering where to start, I always recommend people go to DHS first. I mean, truth be known, that's where all of us go who speak on this. That's where all of us go to get information about this topic, is the Department of Homeland Security. This particular study in the book, the study of active shooter incidents in the United States, 2000 and 2013, is an FBI report. It is filled with information to help get a conversation started. It's a lot of information on where active shooters occur, fatalities broken down every which way you can. It also looks at some of the active shooter incidents that that are still lingering, like Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, things like that. But for whatever reason, I don't know why we would remember one more than another, yet we do. So that is a really, really, really good look at active shooters and workplace violence. I would also recommend the DHS website. Again, it is just filled with information that will help you get started or help support a current initiative. Okay, so it's dhs.gov. You can click around, you can see they're all active links. That's just the tip of the active link iceberg over there on the left. So whether you need a template, a checklist, a guide, there's white papers, legal opinions, things like that. It's a great starting point if you're sitting here wondering, I came today to get the conversation started within my organization, where's my starting point? That's a great starting point. We're also going to talk a little bit later about interaction with groups like the Delaware County District Attorney's Office, with your local police departments. Again, as Danny said, I'm lifelong, born and raised in Delaware County. I'm very proud of living in Delaware County. I've always had very good relationship with the police department during my career. So you have a lot of resources here right in Delaware County. So again, DHS.gov. We'll talk a little bit, like I said, we're not going to do a workshop violence presentation, but I do want to talk a little bit about a component of that book that goes into the active shooter phenomenon. Again, active shooters, more and more, or so it seems, may not just be taking place in the workplace. Certainly, there's a mental health component involved, yet another conversation for a much larger session. And politically motivated as well. That's just our current reality. So I just want to talk a little bit about the workplace violence component of it. I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to facilitate a roundtable that our Chief Executive Officer, Bill Whitmore, used as the basis for a book that he authored called Potential. It's called Potential by Bill Whitmore. We can get it to interested people. It's filled with terrific information. I just pulled out this workplace violence continuum just as a conversation point to get started, talking about active shooters in the confines of the workplace. Working backwards down the continuum, because we need to spend a little more time on the violent behaviors. Violent behaviors, obviously, because of what they are a lot more easily discernible. That is when somebody, that is the active shooter. That guy on the end there is the active shooter. There's no thinking about what's happening. There's violence is occurring. Same thing with the physical assault. Any reasonable individual can look at somebody being assaulted or hear a gunshot and say, danger, danger, your body tells you, get that adrenaline rush, that sort of thing. So working backwards. Mid-range behaviors, it's not that they're difficult to discern. I find that smaller organizations who may not think that they have the resources to address them struggle with these because they don't know what to do. We have a spouse with a restraining order who, there was an assault in the parking lot and making into the building, but we don't have an HR manager. Where do we go? We had we had an angry customer come to the front desk, and our receptionist wasn't prepared for dealing with that individual. What do we do? They could have come back with a weapon. They could have had a weapon. Everybody in this room, sadly probably has an example in their own lives with somebody that they know who has been, maybe that close to, violence, right? So these mid-range behaviors, a verbal assault, again, that's where you start to get into that gray area. Was it just somebody who was angry today? Was it just somebody who was ticked off about something going on at work? Was it just somebody who was just having a very bad day? Does that mean they're going to be an active shooter? Of course not. If it did, if we called the police every time somebody got mad at work, police would be doing nothing but running back and forth to our offices, all day. Reasonable people have to discern the difference between a genuine threat, and that's hard, right? Because reasonable takes them a lot of ground. Your standard for reasonable is different than mine, as is yours. Mine's based on my experience, as is yours. But the point is when you encounter these behaviors, you have to know what to do with them. And that's what I think smaller organizations struggle with. We don't have an HR mechanism, so to speak. We don't have an HR manager, HR director. That's why kiddingly said up front, if you're a business owner, you are the HR manager, right? But there are some resources available. If you have insurance, if you provide health insurance, and people can point you to employee assistance programs. Everybody, these are, the people we pay for insurance and legal advice and health insurance, things like that, can point us in the direction where third-party agencies exist to get help for troubled employees. So again, maybe somebody is just having a bad day, but you can't ignore it and leave it at that. That's a boss's job, I'm afraid, right? Is to have those tough conversations, we call courageous conversations with your employees, to find out, is it just a bad day, or is there something going on at home? Sad fact of the matter is, we probably don't know each other as well at work as we used to 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, think about how much you know about the person sitting next to you. You know, there was a time, and depending on the company you work in, people were coming and going in our organizations more often than they did in the past. There is not a sense of permanence. I don't necessarily know all your kids and all their names and all their birthdays and all the things they're involved in. And so when you come in and you seem a little off-kilter, I have no level set for what off-kilter means. I don't know whether that's your normal reaction to stress or whether you're about to go out into the parking lot and get a gun out of your trunk. Because I just don't know you that well anymore. You come and go, a year later you're gone, somebody else is sitting in your desk, cubicle, office, something like that. That's just, you know, that's our current reality, just in life, and it just applies to everybody in this room. Same thing with the milder behaviors. People who begin to act out at work. Unusual behavior. Again, it's hard to figure out what unusual behavior is if you don't know what usual behavior is. But when people start to act out at work and do things like, you know, we say excessive tardiness when a person doesn't have a reputation for excessive tardiness. So that means there's something maybe going on at home. It's just the basis for a conversation. You know, work production goes down. You know, we call the police for that? Of course we don't. You know, we have a conversation, we monitor it, we keep an eye on it. I don't know what that tipping point is. And I wish I had an answer for everybody in this room as to how to decide when that person is at that tipping point. But I think more than anything, I just suggest to you that we need to be having conversations within our organizations and with people who are professionals in this area about how to deal with people along the route, what we call the path to violence, the path to potential violence. Again, it doesn't track neatly. Somebody doesn't, people can just, quote, snap and go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in an afternoon, and maybe they have a perfectly valid license to carry. Nevertheless, they have a weapon. Do you know if they're allowed in your, what's the security in your offices look like? Is there somebody there to share information about somebody who may be a threat? So there's all these tentacles attached to this. I said I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is a much bigger topic. But just recognize that there are places for you to go as a business owner, as a small business owner who may not have dedicated HR resources. There are plenty of places you can go to get help. So I thought I knew what the profile of an active shooter was until I read this article, and I thought it was pretty impactful. You get your information from the weirdest places. I mean, of all the periodical literature that I read, I would have guessed that Esquire magazine was the best place in this world, and I would find a really good article on an active shooter profile. But this particular author did a particular job, and as the title says, he just challenged us and said, everything we think we know about active shooters is wrong up to that point. Here's how, we're going to spend a little time telling you about the profile of one active shooter, but how did he get selected? Well, we all know the term now, if you see something, say something. And the good news is, people are saying something when they see something. Ever wonder what happens to all that information? Like, where's it go? Where's it go? It's just out there in the ether, somebody took a message, it's an email, it's in a chat, where's it go? It does get collected up, to the point that the FBI has a unit, a behavioral analysis unit, that's a subset of the National Center for, it's a new acronym to throw into your repertoire of acronyms. But it's part of the FBI Critical Response Unit, getting a lot of information in what are we doing with it. There's actually smart people who are working on an algorithm to take all this information, and you can't neatly spit out the future active shooter, but to kind of, it's like an assembly line, like you pick the ones for more scrutiny, off the assembly line, take a closer look at them. And the FBI's Behavioral Assessment Unit has done that. They came across this one really interesting character going to talk a little bit later, we're going to talk in a few minutes about ignoring signals. I'll just tell you ahead of time that this guy's name, his nickname was Trunk. Odd nickname, right? Okay. If you had a guy in your neighborhood and his nickname was Trunk of Guns, it just made the hairs on the back of my neck, right? Because we're going to talk a little bit about ignoring signs. It's like, hey Trunk, how you doing? His nickname is Trunk of Guns, okay? Check number one, okay? Right, check number one. So in this article, they talk about mass shootings becoming part of the American ritual, a sad part of the American ritual, that the formula for an active shooter, that anybody with a grievance and a plan and a gun is a potential active shooter. Just depends on what's going to put them over the edge to go from thinking about it to actually doing it. And there's a process that they follow. Interesting thing about active shooters. They do want to be known. We talked about this odd competition between active shooters. They do study other active shooters. You know, it's said, you did 15, I'm doing 20. You did 20, I'm doing 30. I mean, and just by sheer luck. There are incidents that some of us who have been within law enforcement space, and we've read some of the debriefs on these. There are some incidents that we're familiar with that would have been much worse, except for somewhere along the way a gun jam, or somewhere along the way somebody just dropped a bag of ammunition, or just something, one little good piece of luck in a horrible situation. We get a lot of information. Interestingly, the way we treat medical records kind of inhibits our ability and the ability of this behavioral assessment unit to take a deep dive. And I read a statement that jumped out at me in that article that I thought was really important. Most folks know he's highly visible, the former police commissioner of NYPD. He said in this article that the mentally ill, because of confidentiality laws, are the last truly private individuals in the United States. I mean, we all know, kind of intuitively, that as much time as we spend tweeting and chatting and on Facebook, that somebody's, there's all this information about us floating around out there in the ether, yet there's a gateway set up for folks who, and for all the right reasons, by the way, but there are gateways set up to prevent us from actually potentially getting help for people who may be on the verge. So I thought that was interesting in that article as well. But we tend to think of active shooters as people who see themselves as losers and see themselves as people who are going to get back, so to speak. Actually, they identify in this one particular profile, so it's not making the same conclusion for active shooters, that there's a huge degree of narcissism attached to the active shooter. They don't think they're losers, they think they're special. And they think that they have power, and they think that the fact that they're special and the fact that they have power, what they know about us is that they scare the heck out of us. And they know that, right? Interestingly, this guy, young Trunk, during the time that he was in jail, said something very interesting during his interview. Part of his problem was that his inability to socialize, and that's kind of a recurring theme through the active shooter profile. He gets sentenced to jail, and he said, I developed my social skills in prison. Why? Because I had to. There was no sitting at the cool kids table. There was no cool kids table. You were broken up by race or by gangs or by some other, and you had to join, you had to pick a side, and you had to participate in that group. So he was finally accepted. Whether it was the cool kids table or not, a group accepted him, and he flourished in prison simply because he developed the social skills that he didn't feel he could develop in regular life, so to speak, in free life. There's an element of desperation attached to it. There's an element of, I want to be known now, today, and I want to be known in a very big way. Journals are a part of it, as are video games. They're not a cause. Every time there's an active shooter incident, there's that knee-jerk, well, if we didn't have violent video games, there'd be no active shooters. Yeah, I respectfully disagree, and these guys will tell you the same thing. These just come with the territory. They do come with the territory. They're not going to get rid of video games because they provoke a response in one very sick individual. The other interesting thing that they talked about in this article was the difference between loners and what they call ineffective joiners. They're two different things, right? There's a lot of loners in this world. There are people who are introverts. There are people who are introverts off the charts. They're just very comfortable staying in the background. Perhaps they don't want to join. They'd be uncomfortable walking into this room right now, and if there were no seats, taking a seat down front. They'd rather stand in the back. They're highly introverted, as opposed to the ineffective joiners. Ineffective joiners desperately want to be part of something. They want to sit at that cool kids table. And somehow we end up vilifying the cool kids for rejecting them, and they do in their heads when those kids who are sitting at the table, and we all knew who they were in our high schools, the kids who socialize better than others. It's not their fault they were born with better social skills. Perhaps part of that development would be a little more accepting of the outliers among us, but they take rejection so deeply that they then kind of bunker in, so to speak. So there's a difference between a loner and an ineffective joiner. This particular guy was an ineffective joiner until he joined up with two other guys who decided to launch a plan with him where they were going to wipe out the local high school. And this plan fortunately fell apart in the planning. This guy, he was very upfront. He said, once we planned like we were training for the Super Bowl. Literally, we had journals. We had practice time. Who was going to do what. We had written plans. Who was going to carry the ammo? Who was going to carry the pipe bombs? Who was going to drive where and when and turn left when? It was described as military precision. Total 100% focus on that mission. Now, again, just by the grace of God, a car broke down. They did everything to check the oil, right? So the plan fell apart in the details. And a very alert police officer noticed the car smoking under the hood. Also noticed that guns. If you have a trunkload of guns, there's a good chance that the back of your vehicle is maybe dragging on the road. So a trunk of guns got busted that night. He made an interesting comment, though. His behavior changed radically in the days up to it. And he flipped it around and made it a challenge for you and me. He essentially says, why didn't you see me? Like, I was out there waving, jumping up and down in the street going, I'm about to do something really dramatic, and only I know about it. But I'm sending you signals. By the way, did I mention my nickname's Truck of Guns? Right? So nobody added up one and one and one and one and came up with anything except, there's a kid in the neighborhood. After the fact, of course, people were interviewed. And what did the neighbors say? He was a quiet kid. They were all quiet kids, right? Kept to themselves. Although lately, I've seen a lot of comings and goings in the house. Come to think of it, there were some boxes delivered. Yeah, I think there was something that might have looked like a wife was being carried into the house. And come to think of it, you start to backtrack that up one on one and you go, holy smokes. Right? So this goes to the see something, say something. So this was just an interesting profile on one person. The challenge is, can these people be stopped? And it's a lot of ifs. If we can identify them, if we can assess them, if they can be managed, if someone sees them ahead of time, if someone notices their behavior and wonders what they're up to, and then the biggest if of all, if somebody does something about it. So it's a lot of ifs. And those ifs all come back on us. So I'm very glad that, X number of years after, I don't remember exactly when we started saying, see something, say something, there are some, we're reaping some results that I think people are a little more vigilant. I'm going to talk about situational awareness in a minute. But I also think we're collecting better information. We're collecting data. And I think people who work, just like, every successful enterprise, it's the people who work behind the scenes, in this case, people at the Behavioral Assessment Unit, at the FBI, who I think are doing terrific work, just trying to figure this all out for those of us out here who are living with it every day. This brings us up to talking about situational awareness a little bit. Situational awareness is essentially just being aware of your surroundings, but knowing what's going on day to day in your office, in and around your work area, to and from work, in your home. It's just being alert to those cues that make you go, right? 2 or 3 things make you go, well then you may have a problem you may have to deal with. So we suggest situational awareness as a mindset. It's easy to say be aware. I mean, more and more, this is a common scene on public transportation, right? Everybody is head down. I ride the train a lot. I'm sure folks in here do as well. I pick it up at Elving, take it into Center City, and we're all just sitting there looking. Me too. I'm excluding myself from this. We just all sit there. We are heads down. We are heads down. I wouldn't know if somebody walked on that train with a rifle because I'm heads down, right? So sometimes you have to think about it a little more often. There's all sorts of things that are distracting us out there right now. So there's 5 levels of situational awareness. First one is completely tuned out. This has probably happened to everyone in the room. Another little survey, but not a show of hands survey, right? Have you ever shown up at work or shown up at home in your car and said, I don't remember 1 single second of that trip. Not a second of it. I left work, said goodbye, and here I am sitting in my driveway. It happens, right? Because life happens along the way. I'm thinking about where the kids have to go when I get home, who's got practice, who's got ballet, who's got swimming, the job I have to get done after dinner's done, the time I have to be at work tomorrow, and the next thing I know, I'm home. Same thing happens in life. We become familiar with our environments. Those of us who have worked in places for a long time, do you even know the comings and goings of your building? Do you ever just stop and think about what's changed in my building? What's changed? Are there new tenants? What are they like? Let me go introduce myself. Is the layout changed? What's changed? We tune out. I do too, just like everybody else, and it's dangerous. What we're shooting for is what we call a relaxed state of situational awareness, right? That's that state where you're not on high alert, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. High alert just requires too much energy. Not being facetious, it requires physical energy because there's an introduction of adrenaline into the body that you simply can't sustain. You can't be on high alert every second of the day. It wears you out. So you just have to get into the habit of, call it commentary driving, commentary walking. There's sometimes if you just take a second and walk up the street and just, and your lips will be moving, people will point at you, and just do some just comment on what you see. Comment in your surroundings. Just get you in the habit of going eyes up every once in a while, right? We become very, very attuned to our environments. And then there's the focus. That's the introduction of new information that makes you say, okay, there was I turned on the news this morning, there was a robbery here, I have to be a little more careful if I walk down the street tomorrow. There was, this happened here, I'm a little bit more high alert. This doesn't have to do with active shooters, but it's just a little bit of a personal story about situational awareness. I live not very far from here. For the last close to 30 years that I've lived there, my habit is to get out on the road about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I've been running about the same route for close to 30 years. I'm tuned out. I have come home after a run and didn't remember. If it wasn't for the fact that I was sweating, I wouldn't have remembered that I was running. So I'm fairly tuned out, I have to admit. But then, every once in a while something shakes you back into reality. For example, recently, I just found out in the last couple of days that when I go out for my run in the morning, I now have to contend with the fact that there's a bear running loose in my neighborhood. Everybody get that memo? There's a bear running loose in my neighborhood. I'm now on red alert. I am now full high red alert. And as my wife said as I was going out the door, she goes, okay, you know that the bear's out there, what's your plan? Keep running, I guess. And I know that I can't outrun a bear. We all do. But that's just another little piece of information that's just making me pick up the pace of when I did monitor my run. I had record-breaking time the last couple of days, so I'm really picking them up and putting them down if you see me on Route 1. So, but you can't sustain high alert. You can't, because you just can't be ultra vigilant 24 hours a day. You have to be aware of your surroundings, you have to know how your environment changes, and you have to react to it in a positive way. So it's a mindset, right? I know that there's a lot of law enforcement in the room, and those of you who are in law enforcement or in public safety in a similar, in a similar field may have shared experiences with many folks in this room I've known for a lot of years. We all talk about our first date stories with the woman who's now my wife. And I had the same first date story as many cops and cops in this room, is she wondering why I was counting all the exits, right? But that's just kind of what we do. I mean, you sit down and count the exits, look for fire escapes. It's a little disconcerting, I'm sure, on the first date. But then she did come back, and now she checks the exits when we get to the restaurant, so she's very situationally aware. So there's just a couple of examples. The last one is comatose. Comatose is that injection that has an injection of panic in it. That's the person who's frozen in place because they found themselves in the middle of a situation that they don't know what to do about. That was the person who went from tuned out to comatose because in between, they didn't have a chance to know, assess, process, and react to any information. They're literally frozen in place. Which brings us to, for me, which leads up to what I think is the important part of this conversation as it leads into Tim's presentation, is training. Everybody in the room trains for something. Law enforcement, EMS, fire services, they train. Why do we train? Anyway, I know people in this room on our call. So why do we train? Why do the police train? What's that? Be prepared? Anybody else? Why do we train? Why do we train for anything? Muscle memory? Exactly. They're correct. They are correct. One of the reasons we train is that so when bad things happen, this isn't our first option, right? The way I looked at it as a former police trainer and somebody who's been in this business for a long time is that when you train, the idea is to act rather than react. Act rather than react. If you're not prepared, if you haven't thought through scenarios, when bad things happen, you're going to run around in circles and not know what to do, and you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt others. You're going to be of no value to yourself and your own personal safety. This is why we train. This is training. This is training. This is information. Hopefully when you leave here today, if you have one or two things that you take from here that helps you better prepare and begin training for the eventuality of an active shooter, then we've done a good job here today. What we're doing here, I look at the trained response versus the untrained response. Look at it this way. Training is about making adrenaline your friend. Because if you don't, it's going to freeze you in place and you're going to get hurt. That's what the police do. They make adrenaline their friend. That's what SWAT teams, that's what they practice all the time. So that when bad things happen, they go, okay, nothing's exactly the same as we planned for. It never is, we all know that. But I kind of got it, okay? So I can control my breathing. I can recall what I've done before. I can reduce anxiety through breathing and thinking and going back to what I've done before. I've prepared, now I can take action. I'm not going to react. An untrained person is going to be either frozen in panic, they're going to be standing in place because they don't know why this is happening, they don't know what's happening, and there's this element of despair that settles in, which is really going to make it hard to, you're going to hear about run, hide, and fight a couple of times. It's going to make it really hard to do any of those things. You're simply going to be standing around. So training and exercises are a really important part of your training. You can utilize any number of resources. If you utilize the services of an organization like ours, we have vast amounts of resources that we can make available to you. I always push you back to your local police departments. Law enforcement has come such a long way since I was in the academy. Way longer ago than I wish to admit. And their approach to policing and community policing has come miles and generations since I first walked the beat a long time ago. I wouldn't presume to speak for any police department in here. I'd be hard pressed though to say that any of them would resist coming out and helping you and, to go through, to be better at this, to get planned for this type of event. So again, your security partner, be that public or private, can work side by side with you. There's a lot of ways you can train. There's a lot of things you can do. Alerts, newsletters. You see the list here. And again, I won't read through it because these presentation materials are available. You're certainly welcome to go get them, grab them, print them off, use them. So I won't walk through the list. Effective communication, very, very important as well. I'm just going to skip through to communicating internally and externally. With the advent of smartphones, that has made it, should be making it a lot easier to communicate. There's a lot of mass notification systems, and Delaware County has one. I'm signed up for it, so I get alerts on all sorts of different things. Highly recommend that you take advantage of that. But when you do train, when you do prepare, when you do plan, you have to communicate that plan within your organization. You have to regularly review it too. Again, we talked about turnover before. You need to know who's in your building at any given time, who's not allowed in your building at any given time. If you have a building that's controlled by access control, you have to make sure that you abide by some basic access control procedures. I mean, it may be perfectly fine that I know somebody's husband, and we call it tailgating. You swipe your card, you open the door, you let somebody in because we're all polite. I didn't know that they had, that there's a restraining order against the guy, and he's not supposed to be in the building. So you have to be cognizant of access control, but you have to communicate it. You have to change it all the time. Updating contact lists in today's day and age of people moving in and out of organizations can be a full-time job. Yet, if an emergency happens and you don't know who to call and when, you're calling somebody in the middle of the night who hasn't worked there in a couple of years, aside from being dangerous, it's also a little embarrassing. So these are living documents. You should be updating your plan on a regular basis. Again, whether it's, I hate to keep going back to the single business owner, but if you're a small business, this is kind of on you if you don't have the internal resources. But put a team together, include people. Chunk this assignment out so people can help you put this together, put floor plans together. Again, we're going to talk a little bit, let me just back up for one. Consult with other emergency teams. Make sure that when your first responders come into your building, that it's not the first time they've ever set foot in your building. It's to their benefit, especially sitting on fire, kind of, to know your building. They don't want to be coming in to help me the first time looking at a floor plan. If me and you are looking at a floor plan together, we're both doing something wrong. So again, we're going to talk about options. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because Tim and his team are going to spend the next hour or so telling you about your options, which are, we know about run, hide, and fight. We have an idea of, Tim's going to tell you a little more detail about that. They're also going to tell you about how to prepare yourself for the arrival of law enforcement. It's kind of helping you help law enforcement help you. Things have changed dramatically since I trained a long time ago, pre-Columbine. Any SWAT training I received was arrive, contain, talk, contain some more, continue to contain, talk some more. April 1997 literally changed the rules of engagement about how law enforcement agencies respond to active shooters. And it's hard for people to understand intellectually. And again, I'm going to get into Tim's area and let them expand on it. It's hard to understand intellectually that when the police come in, they're coming with purpose. When I say with purpose, it means they're coming, you might say they're coming in hot. They're looking for the active shooter. We've all seen, perhaps many of us in this room have seen videos of active shooter training where the police are stepping over people who are injured. That's a hard thought to get around. But it's taking out the shooter. That is their focused goal. Again, Tim's going to fill you in on that. Again, when the police arrive, again, this is part of my presentation and it's part of the materials that you can print off if you wish to because they're being made available and use them as a reference. I don't want to step into Tim's area, so I'm just going to go past this a little bit quickly. He's going to advise you on that. And then pre-preparation is everybody's responsibility. Again, I give shout outs to the to our organization, especially because of the business that we're in. We regularly train within our offices. In the office that I work in, close by in King of Prussia, we regularly train for active shooters. We regularly talk about what would happen if somebody walked in here right now, disgruntled employee. You're having your coffee at 7:30 in the morning, guy walks in right now with a gun, what do you do? It stops you in your tracks, it really does. So have a plan, communicate, drill to the plan, assemble a team, and but more than anything, if you haven't yet, begin to talk about it. You don't have to go in blind doing that. You're going to back up to the very first slide and point you back to DHS. These materials, a lot of the terrific materials that Delaware County makes available to its citizens on this very, very tough topic. With that said, I'm going to hand off to Danny's going to actually hand off to Tim and the next presenters, but I'll look forward to talking again later in the day. And I do appreciate very much, I just want to thank on the back end, to thank Danny and the folks here at Newman for making this venue available, making the opportunity available for Allied Barton, but being supportive of a very, very, very important topic, which is workplace safety. Danny, thank you very much.
Thanks so very much, Rich. We appreciate that and your expertise. I'd now like to introduce the next team of speakers to you. Tim Boyce, Delaware County District Attorney Office, Homeland Security Coordinator. First and foremost, Mr. Boyce has been a critical part of the creation of this partnership from idea to execution, and so we appreciate that very much. Mr. Boyce is an experienced Homeland Security professional who works extensively on school safety issues. He's been on a number of regional Homeland Security and emergency preparedness panels, as well as the Delaware County Heroin Task Force. Mr. Boyce's career in emergency management spans more than 30 years, including his long-term service in the Upper Darby Fire Department. We also have Christopher Flanagan, who's a lieutenant in the Radnor Police Department. Lieutenant Flanagan serves as the school safety liaison officer, as well as working as the chief of operations for the Narberth Ambulance. Brian Coleman is an officer in the Haverford Police Department. Officer Coleman is the active shooter instructor for the police department, as well as a SWAT team member. At this time, please join me in welcoming Mr. Tim Boyce, Lieutenant Flanagan, and Officer Coleman.
Invite my pals over here, and rank as the privilege. Lieutenant, you have one wireless, and officer, you have your command voice to use, I guess. So again, thank you for having us here today. Again, my name is Tim Boyce, and we're going to talk about things you should understand for an active shooter. This is an evolving program that we're using. I've been in doing this with my pals here for a number of years, and especially in schools, we've really relied on this idea of have a lockdown, see an event, have a lockdown. The lockdown, we all know, is quiet, small, ready, and in 4 or 5 minutes, the police are going to arrive. Officer, if you start it, and don't please, pulling out your gun and shoot me, 4 or 5 minutes, I'm not going to be here, right? Nope. So that's where we're evolving. We're really trying to talk to people about second 0 to minute 4 or 5. And with that, I just wanted to credit to my boss, Mr. Whalen. I work under his office on Homeland Security issues, but I also advise a number of public and private institutions, universities, colleges. I think and to Rich's point about using private security or private consultants sometimes, the value is a comfort level. It's intimidating to call the uniformed officers in, as nice as they are, and say, hey, I'm starting from scratch. So with the Chamber's guidance, and Trish can connect you with folks, but having someone you can have that conversation and bridge it, most of them are former security, but that conversation. Another part Rich didn't cover, which may be something we should in the future, is how quickly the scene returns back to you. And the immediate need, whether it's a single homicide on the campus, a suicide on the campus, a murder-suicide, of having a plan and professionals there at a terrible time. This is your family, your workplace. So the importance of the professional world, the private sector, right there. Lieutenant Flanagan, besides, I'm going to give credit to your superintendent, Colorado from Radnor Police for sending me here today, is also an experienced EMT medic. So he brings that to the table. And Officer Coleman over here, thanks to Chief Viola from Haverford for sending you over. but is the trainer for officers. So when we talk about active shooter and the police response, it's Chris's job to train the police. And I've had the pleasure of joining him with a couple of times. It's a learning experience. Nobody likes to get shot, but it often happens. And as to Rich's point again, that real world training, what do you do when someone gets shot? And it's an eye-opener, so thank you. So what we're going to talk about today, again, is kind of an accelerated program, but it's really about things you need to understand during an active shooter. Second 0 to hopefully minute 3, 4, and 5. We're in Aston Township. We have a professional security department on campus. We don't have an armed security on campus here today. But so there's a couple of minutes if something bad happens. So we're going to focus on that. And the idea, again, working with the private sector and especially schools, we appreciate you don't have a lot of time for this. It's a tight window. So we're going to try and teach you a program, work with you something maybe you can deliver in 45 minutes that really gets people thinking. And again, it's that idea of what's going to happen in a crisis. We do have a prop we use here. In smaller settings, you know, I kind of set it up by saying, I hate to tell you this, but in 30 minutes, when we get to that point, we're going to have an active shooter come in here. You know, that's an intimidating thought. Again, to what we've heard earlier, the idea, and I'll just use my hands to clap, that we're all sitting here enjoying our day, and outside in the hall we hear that 3 loud. You know, the policeman will be up and out, and some of us won't recognize it. I've had the unfortunate experience of twice being where there was a shooting in my life. And I'll be honest with you, both times, I couldn't tell you where the bullets were coming from. You know, police officers may, but you think you're going to perceive that's, you know, down the hall to the left, to the right, and it's a difficult thing to hear. Am I right, Chris? I mean,
we have some SWAT experts in here, but those of you who work in buildings with long corridors, the echo effect during a shooting, actually during our training scenarios, produced stress to the officers trying to locate the specific area. But the key thing is to identify that you know something's not normal and start to take action, start to get in your prep mode and follow through on your training, which we're going to go into how to do that.
Again, those 3 real things that we talked a little bit about is awareness, recognizing the threat immediately. That's the key. If there's, and God bless the safe Newman campus, but if there's a shooting out there in the lobby, right where our officers are outside, they encountered somebody or somebody came in there, the likelihood of a warning system is going to give us a tremendous amount of advice is probably low. That someone would say, here's the purpose, the guidance, what they're doing, how many people, how many times just you go to a call, and, you know, is it 1 shooter, is it 3, is it 10? People don't know, right?
Typically it's 1 shooter. There's been instances such as Columbine, there's 2 shooters. But statistics have shown that it's usually 1 shooter in active shooter incident. But we always play as law enforcement the 1+ rule, which is there's always looking for a second shooter or second gun.
So again, you're going to hear us talk a lot about run, hide, and fight, which is where we're going with our response. But how you can prepare, how you can talk about it in your office, and then what you can do to actually practice a run, hide, and fight. A lot of us have practiced lockdowns, right? How many people in their workspace or with their people practice fighting? You know? I mean, we're all professionals. We know, you know, how many people practice running? You know, we do have adults with mobility issues. We have a complex thing. You know, when I talk at a school and you say, hey, we're going to run with the kids, you know, that's being honest with you. You know, that's where we're going to. So a little bit again about situational awareness, being aware of your surroundings. We're in a room here, you know, the topic is active shooter. Is a draw a nut to come into the room? You know, whenever we do a bomb threat presentation, I'm always worried, you know, someone wants to try us or something like that. But it really is being aware of your situations at all times. We do not have anybody coming into the back door or any of those kind of things. But we do need to be aware that any moment something could happen, and it's really on us to respond. The normalcy, this again is speaking to a quick reaction to it. And Chris, if you come forward a little bit, you know, you're trained, you know, is this a normal thing if we're having a bad conversation?
People are going to be a little bit more agitated. They may keep coming at you. Officers want to see somebody's hands, want to make sure that there's nothing going on.
Is this a more conversational way? That's, you know, a normal way I should engage you? If I'm up in your face like this, it's not going to go well. But again, you got to have a plan. And I often say to schools, when I talk about lockdown, I use this quick example. You look out the window and there's a police car. This is intended because you normally give a few tickets once in a while for this. But you know, if you're out, look outside your building and there's one police car pulled over somewhere right in front of your building. Is anybody in the school locking down the campus? No, locking down. How about 3 or 4 police cars? Are you locking down your office? Are you calling the headquarters and say, hey, there's 3 or 4 police cars out front? You know, you get a mix of people. And then I said, well, when the policemen pull out their gun, which takes a millisecond, who's calling the front office? That's that idea that it's what's normal, abnormal. You know, a large police presence, for some reason, you know, police don't need to put people over in schools, large presence. So we talk about visualizing. This is a great room to use for our discussion. If we had to do a active shooter down, you know, how would we lock down this room? If someone were shooting a gun in the hallway, have you thought about what you would do right now if someone came through that door, maybe shot, and said there's someone shooting down the hall? As Rich said earlier, that's something you should do in all your workplaces and all your spaces. Where would you hide? We know run, hide, and fight. Somebody come and said, lock down this room. Can we lock down this room? What's your thoughts? You okay, man? Can we lock down some of these doors quickly? Can I lock down that door?
Yes.
Shoot out. How would you lock down that door? Anyway. Yep, take my belt off it. And that door right over there, we did a little earlier, we dropped the chair. Right over there, that door's not down. So we've locked in. Access behind the curtain. So that's kind of continually, where would you go if something ran? And you know, how would you manage these things? It's always thinking, run, hide, and fight is an option you need to decide. It's very dynamic, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But you need to think, this is not a bad room if somebody came in shooting to run from. It's a tough room to hide. Right? You know, and fighting is also going to be in a tough position depending where you're standing. So that's our purpose today, to talk about run, hide, and fight. We are going to talk about lockdowns as a component of that. But the difference being in an active shooter, you have a direct threat to you. You have somebody with a weapon that's shooting and coming at you. This is not someone, if the Newman alert system went off, we had an event on campus, we want you in shelter in place and locked down, that's giving us information, we're going to do that. I'm just reaching in here for a second, but you know, we're talking about the event where this went from a friendly conversation to someone walking in, props here, you know, and producing, this is a toy, but producing this and walking right up here on the stage. That's active shooter. There is no warning coming out on this. There's no leadership telling us that we need to do this or that. This is someone walking in here, raising this weapon. This is a plastic weapon. I promise you, right? Inert, right? Thank you. That walks in and points this at us and starts shooting. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. And Lieutenant, run, hide, and fight is what we should do.
Run, hide, fight video is one, excellent, gives us great options, but in the interactions we're having right now in Delaware County, people want a little bit more, basically a role play and kind of seeing what you really have. Just like somebody said, we have a belt, we put a chair over there, a woman's purse could be used to secure a set of doors. When the other gentlemen talk about panic, we have to do more than that. We're now educating, you're participating in this live drill right now, where we know if somebody came in here, there's limited opportunities in a room like this, but should we just stand here like sitting ducks or sit, or can we at least lower ourselves down and not be a target, or work together as a team to possibly overcome something? Those are the type of things that we're going to get out of this and want you to leave with today.
So the video that's often shown is called Run, Hide, and Fight. We're going to show that for a few minutes. It's a publicly available video. It really gets people thinking very quickly, as Ally Barton said.
But
and then
occasionally,
a couple minutes to talk.
life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Yeah, that video is available from VHS to use, but I really think it's a good tool to begin that conversation with people. It's 4 or 5 minutes. Show it to your children. I have 3 now grown daughters. I've shown it to them all. As Mr. Whalen said in the airport today for his daughter. There's no public alert system going to give her that kind of briefing that we need to talk about run, hide, and fight. So really what we're talking about is empowering your team, your staff, what they will do before that emergency happens. Know where your exits are. He said, as soon as you come in the room, Ms. McNichol was very gracious to let us know, but know where your exits are. You know, one of these exits leads to the outside, and one of these exits leads to the hallway. You know, it's just a simple thought when you come into a building. But if you think about, and you'll see a very powerful video in a minute or two, knowing the exits in your building. If I'm a guest in your facility, I have no clue. I've been a guest in your building a couple of times. Never in the cells, thank you. I've been a guest a few times, but I'm really relying on you to tell me in an event of emergency where there's an exit, where there's a plan to get out of it. So consider it, and consider service areas and things like that. The advantages you need during an active shooter are is you know your own building. You may know where the room leads to a safe room off campus. So again, the program we talk about really here is Second Zero. The person has produced a weapon. You have no doubt in your mind what's going on. Being aware of what we're talking about ahead of time and not in the zone. But the weapon is out. The gun is being fired. You've got no question as to I am in a very life-threatening situation is where we're at. This video is a real video. And if you pay your attention just a little bit up there, you'll see a person hide in plain sight. Right there. It's the gunman. There's some people running. They had zero warning on this event. The bullets started flying. There's a person hiding in plain sight there. There's a person hiding here. There's a person running. They made a decision to flee. We'll show a different camera in a second. Unfortunately, fortunately for the person, right here, the person in hiding in plain sight, the gunman is approached with the gun jammed. That's what hiding in plain sight looked like for this person. They get up and then they run. So run, hide, and fight came to this person's world in a second. When they decided to hide in plain sight, they took their chances. Here's two employees. Watch their reaction to an instantaneous event. Employee one is, good playing, Chris?
Very good.
Good playing, Brian? Employee two has decided to hide. This is the guest that came back. The guest is now looking for direction. These two people, there's no defending this space. The door's wide open. There's a person with a machine gun. They're hiding in plain sight. The traditional lockdown. You know, again, the employee is kind of, hopefully the employee knows where to go. They eventually do make the decision to run. No warning event. No reason to suspect. Police on the way on something like this, Lieutenant?
You know, you're going to have a lot of 911 calls, and this is tough because you got to remember where you're at. You have to have this level of situational awareness. You're at a coffee shop. Do you really know the address? But how about do you know the name and what is at least the main street? As you can see, they didn't freeze, they at least hid, and then once she got her situational awareness, she not only gets herself down the steps, which the first employee did, but also is smart enough to give direction to a citizen who would have no idea probably where those steps go, but now they're in a much safer place.
Sure.
Lieutenant Flanagan said, situational awareness is key. If you're choosing to hide in a situation like this, just be mindful what you're hiding behind. Lots of incidents that we read about, the attackers have multiple weapons, high-power weapons. So if I choose to hide in this situation, if I come behind this podium, which is maybe this half-inch, three-quarter-inch piece of wood, and I'm hiding behind this, the round's not going to stop, or the round's going to go right through this, it's not going to stop. So just be mindful of situations like Lieutenant Flanagan said, if you can support yourself, hide yourself behind it, maybe support beam, which is concrete wall here, this is a lot better concealment and cover than a podium would be. So again, if you decide to hide in this situation, just be mindful of your hiding behind.
So now we're up to this idea that running is your first course of action. I delivered this program recently at a high school. And you know, we were pretty good at lockdowns at high school. 70 educators in the room. When I said run is your first choice, 10 of them looked like, look at I was from another planet. They never considered running. 15 of them said that was always my plan. That if someone came down this hallway shooting, that I was always going to take my kids, I was going to go out the window and I was going to run. So they had thought about it. So it is a new thing that we're talking about. And let's put you on respect. Well, one of the trainings I was at with your officers, you spoke about the officers standing still and what was the danger that involved.
it's really a stagnant target. What we kind of want to incorporate is a moving target that's further ahead than a stagnant target. So when you're moving, the active shooter or the threat has to catch up to that movement across the board without the door. If you're standing still, you're much easier target than you're looking to move.
So again, those options we're always trying to talk about. Escape, lockout, lockdown, some way because we can't get out of the building, and then fight. But really, you need to make this decision in that first seconds. And I'll put you back on the spot again as a trainer. Minute 4 or 5, should I be running down these hallways if I haven't moved yet?
Probably not. So when we talk about decision making, in law enforcement, we follow a concept or an acronym of OODA. And the letters are OODA, and the last word is loop. And it was came upon Lieutenant or a Colonel of the Air Force, a military warfare expert, John Boyd. Law enforcement trains us on a daily basis. And what the acronym stands for is observe, orient, decide, and act. So as a law enforcement officer, when we respond to 911 calls or pedestrian investigations or vehicle investigations, we're observing the behavior of the target where we can or threat where we can. So we're making decisions based on those contexts. So if I, just to show a hand real quick and give it a little easier example. How many people have driven and are driving down the highway or roadway and they look down at their cell phone and it's ringing, or they see a text message pop up, or they go to reach something for something in the text message, you go to change the radio station, you turn back up, oh man, there's brake lights that haven't even, red light just changed. How many people stand on the brakes? I think we've all maybe done that once or twice. So if I can just kind of elaborate on that process there, as a driver, you're looking down to see what text message came across or read something on the passenger seat. You look up, you're observing what's going on in front of you. The orientation part of it, the second though, is you're orienting yourself to the stimulus in front of you, which is the brake lights, the red, study red traffic signal, the stop sign that you may have did not see because you were looking down. Indeed, the decision part, the decision of what you have to do now to correct it, whether it's slamming the brakes, or whatever the case may be. And the last part is act. You have to act upon this, and you have to slam on the brakes, or do a swerve. So when we're talking about the flight concept that Director Wilson went into, you guys have to decide how you're going to react. And we'll demonstrate something later on. But if Mr. Boyce came through the door, his process of through the loop, he's observing what's in the classroom, what's in the room. He's orientating himself to the stimulus in the classroom, which is students, teachers, desks, any obstacles in the way. At that point, he's going to decide what I have to do to either shoot and get around the obstacles, or if I'm going to take out or shoot students on the left side, or shoot teachers on the right side. And obviously, his last part is act. As a law enforcement officer, or as a citizen that's in that room, our mindset is to disrupt that process. So if you have a split second to where that threat comes through the door, you would disrupt his thought process. That split second can save countless of lives. So if you have a chair, you have something, we're going to demonstrate it later. If you have something in your hand, and if you just throw it at him, swing it at him, that disrupts his process, his thought process. He's got to reformulate what I'm doing now. He's got to react to what I'm doing. So again, we use that process when we're encountering everyday subjects. But again, for everyday citizens, this is a perfect concept to think about when we decide to act.
Look at this slide right here. Again, our scenario right here, we heard gunfire in the hallway out there. Someone came in the door, shot. You know what? We've got seconds, a good portion of us, to get out this door and run. You know, we've got to decide very quickly. Or hide, or pick up some weapons and get engaged in the fight. And again, this may be different to a lot of people, and especially schools, but we really are trying to get there. That your first decision when you're facing an active shooter, which is a very defined thing again. The active shooter is not, you know, the bullets found in the boys' bathroom. The active shooter, and I'm reluctant to point this ever up, but the active shooter is this, right? You're not going through a long thing when I go like this to you, are you?
Where immediate action is taken by police, but immediate action needs to be taken by you to that point.
Right. And again, we saw the video, and again, Rich, really appreciate Allied's remarks. Not everyone's going to want to run in a situation like this. Not everyone's going to perceive what the problem is. And fortunately, uniformed officers here may go to the threat. But some of us need to make an immediate decision. We need to talk to our staff, and we need to talk just like that Paris video showed, that we need to make an immediate decision, and we need to stick to it. Then, once out of the danger area, that's our opportunity to make the 911 calls, provide help and things like that.
Tim, if I could just make a point, especially at a college campus or a large business campus, there is a chance what we call Centrex lines or bundled lines where when you dial out, it shows up as one number. You've got your phone calls on your cell phone where you don't know who it is, but you're like, oh, I know that number. You have to be aware of how your phone system works because it's very important for the dispatchers to get accurate information. So we may come up with Newman University. That's a great piece of information because cops from everywhere, captain from Upper Darby, guys from Springfield, everybody's going to start to come. So that's the good news. But now we need to dial them in as they get closer. We need to know what building you're in. Are you in the cafeteria? Are you in the auditorium? Where are you at? But a lot of times if you dial 911 from one of these business phones, school phones, it's a Centrex line, a bundled line. So we're going to need to get more information. You're going to have to be prepared to at least describe where you're at and have that situational awareness to help the dispatcher relay to probably every police officer in Delaware County is going to be on the move in an instant to come to an incident like this.
We often hear about passing the seriously wounded. You said earlier that you've been a career medic your entire life. You're arriving one of these things. Are you really going to, I'm shot and laying here, the guy's in the hallway. Are you really going to let me go? Should I really pass someone that's in?
The police officers are going to go and they're going to look for the target, make sure nobody else is shot. And we have some SWAT experts, make sure on the break and talk to them because they really are up on that. But the EMS providers are now going to get ready. They're going to call in for a major response, and they're going to get prepared. EMS is now not standing by anymore, 4 blocks away. They know they have to engage the critically injured, and they're going to get ready to do that. But that first couple minutes for transition where the police are coming in, that initial response team is going over the wounded. But that's also not to say that you can't help it. In some of the trainings that you have following, you can actually do some very simple wound care. That's military concepts, which actually save lives. And it's a big deal. We'll talk about that in a little bit on the behind.
So that's the thing we could even look to add to our plan. What happens after the shooting? It's the murder-suicide on campus where we've got people injured. You're focused on one thing. I've got a team. I prepare with my security professionals. There's maybe something we may need to do then. And running in a zigzag, Brian, I think you talked a little bit about that. But this is probably an appeals to the open area. We're out in the courtyard here, looking at our nice vehicles, make sure you'll look at them out there. But running.
Again, the staggered target is easier to hit than moving target. That's just pretty simple.
It applies to a room like this, right?
Absolutely.
So we've tried to get that idea that we really do want to push. If you can avoid the threat, run from the threat as soon as you can. Get the space between you, get the other side of the law enforcement, let them do their job. But this is something we didn't talk about. The tough part, mobility issues. Intellectual disabilities, maybe in your campus or your facility. These are things planning ahead of time you've talked about. That's where safe rooms, that's where locking down comes in. Preparing for the internal lockdown, we all have our workspaces. You need to be thinking about those all the time. If you don't know, if your door doesn't have a lock, you need to have thought about how you're going to lock that door. You're going to think about how much it takes for me to lift this table and get it over there. When you need to have thought about at all times before the active shooter, what your space looks like and if it's a defensible space. Not every space is defensible. We were all having coffee out there early on. That's a tough space. If somebody comes walking across there, that's not where I'm locking down. But there are places in this building, there are places we need to think about. Often we get into schools and that parochial, not to knock on the parochial schools, but that view in schools that the lockdown's been issued and I must stay exactly in the room I'm in, and that's it, the roll of the dice. When the reality is you've worked through a plan, you've said, hey, across the hall is a secure door with an exit door, a brick wall. I'm not in a room with drywall, right? I've thought of that ahead of time. But thinking about your space ahead of time and whether it's defensible. We get into now announcing the lockdown. The shooting's going on in the building. We stress plain language. When it's an active shooter on an event, we respect that different things can happen on your campus. You don't want to cause panic. But when it comes to a shooter, the more information people can convey, the better. You know, if you're in your building and you say, boy, a handsome young guy in his late 20s maybe, you know, very fit, athletic, in his black suit, you know. But that kind of information is key. There's no secrets on a campus. Everybody who works in the school knows every kid is tweeted, text, Instagram, hashtag done one of these, you know. So there's no secrets. We really do stress plain language so everybody knows what the threat is. There is not going to be, you know, there's going to be an enormous media presence here. You're not going to hide anything. So when you do have this, and again, concerned of all your guests on your campus, can they hear? Can they appreciate the warnings? You know, warning systems are kind of a new thing on campus. Maybe talk to Allied Barton a little bit later about that, but these mass alert systems that we use. But how do we communicate? How do I know that if there's a shooting, and I unfortunately didn't sign up for Newman Alert yet, and I'm a guest here, how do I know there's not a problem in another building? You know, that kind of communication system is things we need to ask. And frankly, if somebody comes running through that door and says, hey, there's a person with a gun out there, there's not a lot of time for me to say, let me go see, I'm newsy, I don't hear anything. You know, we could all tell the war stories and, about people saying there was a threat, and people getting bored and then coming back out, right, Chris?
And also, many of you are already advanced. You have radios in commercial industries. A lot of schools have portables. There's several other ways you can also get secondary information. Obviously, you always want to make sure the dispatcher's on the way. But when you do your self-assessment, you bring in your local PDs, which will really be inspirational for you, and give you those good ideas. Take a look at your infrastructure that you have so you can use it to announce lockdown in term and make sure everybody heard it.
Right. And when it comes to calling 911, obviously with businesses, most places incorporated, it shows up the 1-800 number, somebody knows. But what do you need to know? I'm on 911, I'm standing here, there's a shooting on the campus, you're the guy that's coming to save the day. What is key that you need to know immediately?
Description of the shooters, you need to know what the actor looks like. Because obviously it's a school situation, we have multiple kids coming out of that building, possibly one dressed in race, color of jacket, pants, there's a firearm being used, all that's key information. Really, the most pertinent information is what the shooter is wearing and where he's located.
And again, our 911 system is capable of taking those calls. They're going to get the call and you're going to say, we got a shooting, they got a shooting, but I have someone shot in room 203. That call, you know, we can process that. But the more information you get, the better we're all off on this thing. So now, you know, we've communicated the threat, we're hiding the threat. This is what, you know, your lockdown drill should be talking about. You should be sitting, and good sister, I'll pick on you a little bit, but you in your conference room with your colleagues need to think, hey, if we can't push this room, how could we barricade this door? How can I buy myself time for you who wants the hallway to come down? So it is about moving furniture. In schools, it's really hard. I mean, in schools, we're not doing this because the kids would go crazy and everybody would have a good time. But when do we begin the dialogue of taking every piece of furniture and barricading all 4 of these doors or 5 out back? And we're hunkered down until we figure out what's going on. A lot of talk goes on in schools about how do we come out of lockdowns. That's hard, right?
And it's important. And also, that drill that Tim's talking about, you can do it your next meeting and spend 5 minutes on it. It's not, you don't have to have a 10-hour master drill, although the more preparation, the better. But you could start this process literally tomorrow at your next meeting.
Yeah, what's it look like to barricade the room I'm in and make my space defensible? You know, hiding from a shooter, again, your goal really is, and you have to stress this to people, you'll make it as hard as humanly possible for that person to get through the door.
Know that closet, the drywall versus the brick closet. Take a moment to take a look at your surroundings. How many of us are busy? Have you ever really gone upstairs to the other administrative floor? Those types of thinking, in case you are up there, and you know what the layout is up there as well.
And to your point about ducking cover, if I'm in this space, what should I look like?
I mean, you should have out of view of the active shooter. So if there's a window on any of these doors, 9 times out of 10 that door's locked, you'll look by to see if you can see it in there, and just proceed to the next, target area to where it's targeted around where the kids are, other employees may be shot. One of the things that I took notice of, obviously, when we were young, my kids go to school, and I was at home and definitely hide and really hide. instead it's a drywall closet that's open no bins, which is not going to stop anything. So, I have more discussion with our kids and instructing them to do different things. But I would implore all you guys to your kids to see the classrooms look like what they're told to do.
Again, that concept we use a lot in schools that applies here. Be small, be quiet, and be ready. Be ready because you may have to move again quickly if the event changes or the door gets breached. Open areas, I'm in a parking lot, what's changed, what should I be doing then?
Right, and the open areas are the toughest, especially when we get to school. Teachers really take that serious because it's not their normal classroom. It really can turn into a bunch of people. We want you to use those motions, as the other officer said, try and stay out of there. If you have to hide, then get down, at least try and get yourself out of sight of the shooter. You're in a parking lot and you have to hunker down and you're away from your car, then get behind an engine block, right? Hide behind the wheel of the car. Put as much between you and the shooter as possible, that substance is positive, because that way you're less of a target.
Right, but there's props we can use, simply as trying to jam that door shut. In all of our offices, again, look at those spaces, walk into a room and say, how can I secure this door? We talked a little bit about what 911 operators need to hear in a call.
State Police Emergency, are you calling in a shooting?
Yes.
Okay, do you have it, do you know who it is, or where the person might be, or if there's any injuries?
No, I do not.
Okay, where are you right now, ma'am?
I am in the library.
Okay, do you have anybody in the library with you?
No, I'm calling because we called the office because the intercom is on,
Okay,
and that's how we know.
okay, so there's no children in the library with you?
There are, but they are safe.
Okay, make sure you lock the doors and all that, okay? We have somebody on the way.
Thank you.
State Police Emergency, is this the shooting in Newtown?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do you have anybody with you right now? Do you have any children with you?
I have no children. I have 5 adults looking at shot twice.
What has been shot twice? Where are you?
I'm in the first conference room.
Okay, are they breathing and talking to you?
She's breathing, but she's barely.
Okay, do you know who the shooter went?
He's right outside the door.
The shooter's outside the door.
He's shot on the truck.
That's tough. That's tough. But that's the reality of what we're talking about. Those poor people are hunkered down in a classroom with a colleague gets shot and a shooter outside the door.
It still gives me shivers, and we've done this presentation multiple times. The dispatchers are trained to get information out of you. Don't become frustrated with them. They are very trained in what they're doing. They're updating that officer live, dispatching resources, but they may keep you on the phone. They also may, if there's multiple people in the same room like this, and everybody was calling, they may give you instructions to get off. Long and short is follow what the dispatcher says. Don't try and get ahead of them. Try and remember everything that you can, description, all of that. But they definitely are going to work you through the problem.
And where you're at. It doesn't, the old library, the new library, Mrs. Smith's room, you're in the fight right from Hartford. You don't know where Mrs. Smith's room is, do you here?
Not really, but we didn't have to with the officers that work in their respective townships. We have a good relationship with the school and the council where we go in, walk around, we have layouts of computers or inside the car, so we can really access that information from inside the car. So we have a working knowledge of some of the schools in the township. So that's
Right. Then just quick on that fire alarm. You really should expect the fire alarm to go off during your lockdown. All is going bad right now. Somebody's shooting. The fire alarm's going to go off. Why is the fire alarm going to go off, Chris?
There could be shooting, there could be water being sprayed, there could be a couple different things, or just somebody wanting to make the building alert. Sometimes people may pull that as well. And actually, sometimes the bad guy may try and do it too if they've done some research. It has been a technique that's been used on one or two occasions.
So now in our planning thing, we're trying to tell people, again, not overwhelming, but I need to think ahead of time on my room, my space as a defensible. What am I going to do in my room? I need to get small. I need to think that I need to call 911 and give them that horrible information that someone injured may be locked down in my room and now the fire alarm's going off. Is that your first concern when you get there? Your 100th concern, maybe, but it's not your first. But again, that kind of real-world confusion, what we're trying to do is get people to understand that reality. We're not trying to scare you. We are just trying to get you to appreciate all the things you need to do. And again, your command and control, every school, we work with the schools very closely. When Mr. Severa, Chairman, talked about the Del Pass alarm, that was recognized because we appreciate it. There's no way somebody's going to be able to stay at that front desk of the school and do this and get on the PA system. You heard it from Newtown. They were able to get a brief message out. They lost the main office. They lost their command and control center in a second or two, but we're able to communicate. And you can't find, this is where you really start to get to, again, this is your point, this is not the greatest thing to hide underneath.
Now, when we talk about cover and concealment, the difference of the two is concealment is really just hiding behind something to provide you a little, I guess, out of the way of shooting. Concealment or cover is something to stop a bullet. Program coming out of the fire.
And if, things change, the shooter went past us, we saw him go past, maybe I can make my break for it, right? That's your point of always trying to reassess the situation, be fresh with things. So we talked a little about running as our first option, what that takes, what that looks like. We talked a little bit about hiding and locking down, what a real lockdown looks like. We're encouraging people to try and move some furniture, see what it's like. It doesn't take a ton of things. You said the belt, the chairs, the secure door. We're coming to fight. I mean, I'm going to put you two experts on things. Is it really time to fight when I come at you like this, or is it, what are my options? What are your options coming down, Chris?
Well, if we don't, we obviously have options as police officers. We're talking with the perspective of what you have is if you can't get away, we don't want anybody to engage in armed subject because we know what the results could be. But we may have to team up in that fight component where we take items and we try and take the person down. If there's 20 of us, at least if we dogpile on them, yes, could somebody be injured? Yes, could somebody be killed? But we can get that weapon removed from them, hold them down. You have a major police response coming, you know that, but at least neutralize the target. Just don't give up and stand there like a target. And if you have to, or you're in a concealed space and all of a sudden something breaks, all those things that we just went over, you don't have an option. If we team up and talk, we may be able to make a difference. Just like on the plane during the attacks, those people got together in Pennsylvania and said, we're going to make a difference. And they took people who were trained assassins with high weaponry and retook control of the plane. And that's an important feature that shows that you can be determined citizens. These weren't SWAT operators or high-level military. These were people who got their act together and took out people with a very horrible mission in play.
I'm inviting two guys to my office. You've come in for the day, and I say, hey, thanks for coming here today. I don't carry a weapon. What in this room could I use to fight back? I mean, your profession, what do you see? You worry about yourself? What's in this room?
There's chairs here, you guys included with behind the curtains here, there's fold-up chairs, there's easel back there, music sheets.
If we had to team up, there's long flags. Even if this subject, we had an incident in, I think it was Allentown, I apologize, where the subject had 1 or 2 knives and he inflicted major damage. So put the guns to the side for a minute. If a couple of us got together with those 3 flags, 1 or 2 of it, we can now at least keep that person at distance, probably neutralize him, hit him in the head. Some of these ladies, I saw some pretty impressive backs here. I think you can do something. So we have that shoes, boots, shoes with heels, whatever it may be, you can improvise, utilize some of those things that are around us. There are a lot of tools in here. Throw the flowers at them. I walked in with a hot cup of coffee. If it happens right when that happens, that can really neutralize somebody by splashing their face. Give you a split second to either evacuate, run, hide, fight, or go after them, neutralize them, hold them down till the police get there.
You even asked about fire extinguishers too. What was your thought there?
I mean, all the classrooms should have fire extinguishers. I noticed there's one in the back there. I mean, we saw the video where the guy, in the end, the guy was using the hip. I mean, you can do that, but I'd rather stay 5 feet away and spray him. Spray in his eyes and hit you, 5, maybe 10 seconds to engage. You guys decide.
And don't give up. Once the fight's on, the fight's on.
Fight for your life. Push through. Think of your family, whatever it is. Police officers trained to control their breathing. I know firemen trained to control their breathing when they're wearing the air pack so that they can survive a tough situation that gets out of normal. You guys can survive by not giving up, controlling yourselves, remembering this training and working through it.
We spoke about anything can be used as a weapon at this point, right?
Marquees, anything.
Yeah, so the thought is that, look at your space, talk to your staff, what's defensible, whether you're allowed to have weapons on campus or not, do not let me know if you're not a law enforcement officer, but if I'm always thinking that if I'm in the room and this happens, I'm going to say, does anybody have a gun? Does anybody have mace? Again, maybe somebody to what Ally was speaking about is panicked. They carry mace or something, or scissors. But that idea that every room we should look at and think about ahead of time. What would I do if that sound came down the hall? In committing to the battle, we talked a little about this. All things are on. And again, controlling the weapon is really controlling the threat, right? We talk about this sometimes. It's a little bit, I always appreciate it. You don't beat me up during this part of it. But we talked a little about controlling the weapon and controlling the gun and controlling the shooter. So I'm going to ask you guys to kind of talk about that. If this were a classroom, what we often do is say, you know, you two fellas, and I'll appreciate it if you think this is a door and you're on one side and you're on the other. And, you know, we've done everything. What were we supposed to do before this? Before, I couldn't run, right? And I barricaded the door as best I can. Now there's two unarmed people in the room, right? The gun can only be shot in one direction. I got to come into the room and orient myself. Not beat me up. I always ask this thing. But this is kind of that sincerity of what we're talking about. And this is, again, sister, if I invited you up on the stage to do this, this is something we really do want people to orient. The worst thing we could ask for you is to sit there and wait for me to breach this door when you can hear me going bang, bang, bang down the hallway, bang, bang down the hallway, and you hear this door being opened up. So I'm going to come through this door, and you two guys aren't armed. You could have picked up a chair, you said. You know, the luck of the draw, and again, rank has its privilege. I come through the door, I orient, I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to try. You guys are focused. I should have hold it for right there. Why are you focused so strongly on this and not me?
I want to point the gun in the safe direction. Also, this finger is right outside the trigger guard. The trigger guard being this square with the trigger guard. I'm holding his finger there so he can't get to the trigger. So I know he cannot fire that firearm. So when I'm only doing this part here, Lieutenant Flanagan is engaging the threat there. So if I can get this away from him, virtually limited.
And how many rounds can a gun like that hold generally?
14.
So 14 people could be either killed or maimed. By removing that, now we have to deal with just a bad guy. If he was able to pull this away as a citizen, we now greatly reduce the chances for Tim to inflict more harm on people. Not saying he isn't going to go crazy and there aren't going to be more issues, but we certainly reduce the chance of injury and death by getting a hold of that.
Just one more additional thing here. The way this is some of them, this is different than obviously the revolver and a cylinder where the rounds are held. If Dr. Bush came in, was able to get a round off, and me holding this slide, which is the top part of the firearm, it works with a recoil motion. So it comes back and puts another round into the chamber. So if I'm holding this tight enough, it's not going to allow it to enter another round into the chamber. So if I'm holding this, it's virtually safe at that point because there's no other round to discharge if you pull the trigger. But I've got to make sure that I'm holding it tight enough where it's not going to cycle back into another round.
And again, I know that's an aggressive action we talked about, but the other side of the scenario, that I walk into the room and you're 6 or 8 feet away from me, you're at a real disadvantage to fight now, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of times we train our officers when we have the training. And the one-time fighting deal is a perfect example of it, when there's 4 officers coming in a different formation. Lots of times if we're looking at 4 officers, it's great. Sometimes the size of the department dictates how many officers respond. So 2, 3 officers may respond in their own room and have to shoot race. Unfortunately, we train those training officers to enter a different vantage points. Meaning when we come in, we separate this way. The shooter has to identify, I only got 2 targets that have to engage. Which one should I engage first? If he engages one, unfortunately that officer may get shot, loses life, who knows. The other officer is at the advantage because he can potentially take out the field.
And again, you both spoke to this. Could you get shot in this scenario?
Yes.
You know, are you going to get shot if you take aggressive action?
You may.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing to think of. Again, this is meant to put in that longer-term planning thought of yours. What does it look like in my thing, a bleeding control kit, something like that we keep on our campus? That, we need to address these kind of things and training. We're training your people on first aid and what to do. We've heard this work as a team. This was 2 people. made a little bit of a difference just because they took a proactive thing. They had thought about fighting, and that's no weapons. I mean, you clump me in the head with that fire extinguisher, you stab me with those scissors, you know, maybe things can change. So it's really understanding your advantage, and that's really what we're trying to empower people to. We are really trying to collaborate, best word we could use. That on an active shooter, you need to be responsible as a partner in second 0 to minute 4 or 5, and possibly longer. But that idea that there's an aggressive things you can do better than sitting and waiting for bad things to happen. When law enforcement arrives, again, you are the guys, you know, do I want to come at you like this? Or, you know, those kind of thoughts.
Law enforcement's very on target in that initial response to go after the bad guy, to neutralize the target or get it so that they're not able to do any more damage. You really have to be cognizant that we don't know who you are. You may be the best, most tenured employee with the best record, but if you get in the way of a SWAT team or guys in formation, they could take you down or do something else. You want to follow the commands, not to try and interfere with them unless you have something very specific that's critical of the guys hiding right there. These officers are in a very locked and specially trained mode where they're going to get that done, and then we're going to start to recoup, check every door, nook and cranny, make sure everybody's safe. Tend to all the injured, but that initial response is different. Just like if you're in a bank robbery, they're not going to just let you walk out and go to your car. There's certain procedures police departments follow to make sure that the bad guy hasn't gotten mixed in with you because we don't know who you are.
Right, and that rescue team arrives. I'm an employee of the company. You might give me directions. I may think it's the smartest thing to go to that door. You're going to tell me where to go, right?
Absolutely. The rescue team is EAT personnel, along with other officers, coming in the same way the initial team came in. You know, it's all safe. They're going to start addressing any room for any personnel.
You know, can this happen here? We're on towards the end of our conversation. It has happened here, unfortunately. And people took actions. On the particular case we're talking about, but people took aggressive actions to not let someone just come in and shoot it out. We need to have that conversation in all our workspaces with, you know, in the planning and preparedness, but what response looks like. You know, this is different. We're new with this kind of aggressive model. You know, we didn't talk fight just a few years ago. We never even mentioned it. We kind of whispered it and run, hide, and fight, went on to the next slide. But this is a conversation we really want to have. Our last thing kind of is a very dramatic of what run, hide, and fight could look like in a real world. It's again from the Paris attacks, but you're going to see this concept of people making an immediate decision once again to exit the building, people going past the injured, example of someone stopping to help the injured and seeing what happened to them. And what's curious, and I'll let it start for a second. This is a real-world run, hide, and fight scenario, is what we're looking at right here. We're looking at the back of a theater. We're in a theater right now. What don't you hear in this? What don't you hear coming to help right now? There's no sirens coming. You can hear the gunfire. You can see people making their best decision to get out on a window ledge, hang out. That's the only exit they found. That's their hide. You know, that's what the hide looked like for that person to maybe survive. You can see people stopping to help the injured on these kind of things. You know, we're looking at a mass casualty. We're looking at a lot of things. Is there any way that a public address system is given direction during this kind of thing? You spoke about the police officers. Is there anything you can do for these people as you go past them?
The main objective is those who sound the gunfire.
In one of the videos, you actually see someone return, pick up a person, and they're shot trying to help a person flee. So this is the reality of what run, hide, and fight can look like. It's not meant to scare you, but it's meant to just empower people to have thought through the logical steps when someone comes into your church, when someone comes into your government center, somebody comes into the lobby of this university, and we, the adults, have thought through what we can do to help. So as we close out, really, we're hoping that you look at this conversation as a new way. And I do appreciate both Harrison and Randa joining me on this as a new way of maybe addressing this conversation. Start with the run, hide, fight video. It's a good way to get people discussing these kind of things. Bring in your corporate people who can talk about these things in a reasonable way. As Rich said, training is not about scaring people. Training is about trying to get better as a collaborative group. And the number of resources we use, we often get this idea, well, give me the published thing, and everybody gets nervous. I can't give you the published. DHS publishes all the guidelines. So you can go there, reasonable people can disagree, and often sometimes police don't always agree on some of these things as well. So you need to work with your local police very closely to understand their perspective. So again, I'm very proud in Delaware County. I know you can call every local police department and get a professional to come and speak to you and have this dialogue with you. But the materials are all available online for free. So with that, I appreciate your attention, and I do appreciate both officers joining me here this morning.
Thank you.
If everyone's all right, we're going to actually begin the final portion of our presentation today. Our final panel members, as you've met earlier, District Attorney Jack Whalen, Chamber President Trish McFarland. We also have on stage, we have the privilege of having Trooper Timothy Green, a trooper in the Pennsylvania State Police for more than 12 years, and he serves as a community service officer and PIO. We also have Charlie Bonenberger, Vice President of Government Services for Allied Martin. Charlie brings more than 20 years of public and private sector experience in the political, government, and public sectors. So, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for your questions. I received an overwhelming amount of questions from the audience, and that to me is a true sign of success for the event, because people are thinking about this, and that's the whole purpose, to be prepared and to think about next steps of what we can do. So the first question that I've received, I'm a small business owner in a large building office complex. Who do I go to discuss emergency planning, and where do I start? Charlie, can you take that one with Alan?
That's a really great question. For our business and our company, a lot of our clients are those large properties. Some of them have security people on site, some of them don't. But the building owner, the building manager is generally the best place to start. They're the folks that are responsible for the overall property. Everything from the mundane issues of parking lots are out, or the parking lot lights are out, and so on. That's the first place to start. That doesn't mean that you can't do some of the things that we've talked about today as well for your own office space. Rich mentioned earlier, and I think Tim did as well, that being aware of what other businesses are in your area are important. So, for example, plenty of us see in the newspapers that there are certain organizations that are controversial. So if there's a controversial organization in your building that could be a target for something, you want to know about that. So to answer the question specifically, starting with that property manager is the first place to go. But I don't think you have to wait to come up with the basics of a plan for your business just because you're a single tenant. And reaching out to your neighbor tenants as well.
I would also add to that we have in Delaware County 42 separate police departments, including the Pennsylvania State Police. And I have not met a chief, and I interact with our chiefs on a daily basis. I have not met a chief or a municipality with their different borough managers or commissioners in the township that would not help a business in their district. So you could also feel free, if you're thinking, well, my landlord is not going to give me the time of day, or I'm not going to be successful with my landlord, please talk to the chief of police. Feel free to sit down with them. They will assist you. They will be able to direct you. They will be able to help you. Our criminal investigation division and the Office of the District Attorney's Office can also help you. And certainly the state police, and Trooper Green's here for them, will also be more than willing to help any business in their district.
The next question. I'm very concerned about the disabled and special needs population in my organization. How do I best prepare to protect them? Trooper Green, can you answer that?
I think first that you need to have some type of plan. Know what their disabilities are, what they're capable of doing,
And once you get a plan in place, you need to practice that. And you need to make sure you do it not just once, but keep on doing it where you become familiar. So in that time of need, you know what you have to do. And also come up with a couple of different plans. So if you have plan A and it does not work, you can go with plan B and or plan C. And make sure everyone is aware that what the different plans are. The main thing is you got to educate, communicate, and know what your limits are, and reach out to either other organizations to help you out with those things.
Thank you. The next question, I'm uneasy and concerned about bringing up this topic in my workplace and organization. How do I get the conversation started? Trish, can you take that from a business perspective?
Usually you would want to start with your supervisor. If you're in a large organization, tell them your concerns. If you're in a small organization, like the chamber, we're a small staff, we're under 10, and we were broken into in October, and the staff did have some concerns. So they did bring them to me, and we worked, as we said earlier, with our realty company, our landlord, and obviously we were involved with the local police, and we met to address those concerns. So start with your supervisor, or if it's a concern with your supervisor, go to their supervisor. If you have on-site security, start with them. So just starting the conversation, or say, hey, I saw something, or I went to this seminar, and we really need to think about these things, because it's better to plan and be prepared than to be reactive.
There's one other piece of that too. There's a concept in emergency management called the all hazards approach. So whether it's this type of an incident, a flood, a storm, all of that fits into a business continuity model, right? So every business has to be thinking about their business continuity. And Tim alluded to it in his presentation that after an incident like this occurs, the responsibility for that location goes right back to you that day or that next day. So even putting it into the context of business continuity, that might also help with broaching the subject at the business. Because at the end of the day, trauma will impact that organization. That trauma needs to be dealt with.
As a school board member, how can I best determine if my district is prepared? Are there audits that can be performed? District Attorney Riley?
Again, I would invite the school board member to go back to the municipality that they reside in. Now, many school districts serve multiple municipalities, sometimes 2 and 3 different municipalities. These municipalities will typically work together in Delaware County, so there are drills constantly occurring. I was involved in one drill just a few months ago at Eddystone Elementary School, where various police departments from the district came to address and drill as to an active shooter plan. So they were Ridley officers, Eddystone officers, some Ridley Park officers. All of those municipalities are part of the Ridley School District, so that was occurring. I know over the years, we've practiced in many municipalities. All 15 school districts in Delaware County have plans in place. All police departments in Delaware County have plans in place. If you have an issue, I would bring it back to the school board, have the school board coordinate this with the chief of police. There'll probably be 2 or 3 chiefs of police that they'll be dealing with. If it's, for example, in Garnet Valley, it would be the Pennsylvania State Police that you'd be coordinating with. And we have had drills in Garnet Valley, for example, with the state police, active shooter drills. So every single school district is protected and drilled.
In preparing for an active shooter emergency, who should be included in the discussion within your organization, from the local community all the way through? Drew McKinney?
When you first off within your organization, I would say you definitely have management that needs to be involved. And also with that, I would also take the facilities manager, because that's a person that knows the layout of the building, what the capabilities of that building are, and also some of your surrounding neighbors, which throughout this discussion throughout the day, there's been people alluding to that. Once you have that in place, then I would reach out to your local police organization, speak to that police chief or their community outreach person to get some type of plan where you're working together. So, in the case of an incident, you're all on the same page, where the communication
it's better to get that communication and working together before an incident occurs, because when an incident occurs, it's not the time to meet people for the first time. So get that working relationship started early.
To paraphrase this one, a coworker is acting differently. What should I, in the workplace, and I'm concerned about that, I'm concerned about the behavior in the work environment. What should I do and who should I tell? Trish, can you?
I think, first if it's your supervisor, don't talk to them, talk to their supervisor. Try to, as Rich mentioned earlier in his presentation, try to identify what the acting strangely is. You don't want to call the police if somebody's having a bad day, because then you look silly. Not that you ever look silly in the police. But you want to identify why they're acting strangely, what's going on in their life, what's happening, and see if there's anything you should be doing. And if it is a concern, like your nickname is drunk, then yeah, maybe you might want to start the conversation. Maybe you mention it to the police, see what's going on from there. But identify what's going on in that person's life. See if the other coworkers, you don't want to talk about them, but start with the supervisor, start with HR, and see if there's, you have public safety on campus or in your building. Talk to them too, to just alert them to that situation, but find out what's going on before you overreact, but you don't want to underreact and then have a situation go too far.
What is the panel's opinion regarding guns for staff members in schools, in workplaces, on campuses, carrying in public places? This is, no pun intended, a loaded question. Anyone on the panel?
Well, it is a tough question. It's certainly a very, very difficult question. I mean, I'm an avid supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe that a person who is lawful, a person that does not have a criminal history, a person that does not have a history of mental illness should have the right to carry a weapon if they so choose, a handgun if they so choose, or a long gun if they so choose. Where it becomes very difficult is that now you're talking about going into a school environment and allowing teachers, for example, or people that may not necessarily be trained in the use of a firearm to possess. And I don't necessarily think that that is a good place for guns in the school. I think we need to try to keep the school environment gun-free. I think if you have an officer in your school, certainly you want that officer who's highly trained in how to handle a weapon and circumstances when to use and draw his weapon. I think it's fine. So I think instead of looking at whether or not teachers should be armed, I think we can, in schools, increase school security, whether it be by private security forces or by utilizing the police. Now, we do have school resource officers in different school districts in Delaware County. These are regular police officers that actually go into schools and interact with the students, try to befriend the students, make sure the students have a good relationship, address some of the concerns they have, and yet there are armed officers in those particular schools, and I'm certainly for the expansion of that, but I would not like to see any additional guns placed in our schools. As it applies to the workplace, I was one of the first on the scene at Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital when the doctor was armed with the gun, and I went in shortly after the killing and saw the results of a patient that came in with a gun to a psychiatrist's office on the campus of Mercy Catholic Medical Center, and saw that the only way that doctor survived and actually may have saved other lives from other individuals is because he happened to be armed with a weapon and used that weapon and shot his perpetrator, who ultimately survived. So in that particular circumstance, in that case, I think more people would have died that day, but for the fact that the doctor was armed with his own personal handgun and was able to use it. So I think in the workplace, it may be a little bit of a different situation where the business owners are going to have to, the corporations are going to have to make a decision whether they're going to permit those guns in the workplace. And it may help, it may not, if they fall into the wrong hands, obviously. So we're always in this catch-22. Whenever we bring a gun into the situation, whenever we have parents that have guns and people have guns in the household, we're always educating them to make sure their guns are secure, because the last thing as a parent, when you're trying to protect your family, you want as a child to have access to that gun. So there's a lot of considerations. It's not an easy answer, but I do believe ultimately that it's an individual's right, if they so choose, to have that weapon in their home.
If I could just add, that's a question that we are asked weekly. I deal with communities across the country. I think it's fair to say, Rich, in the last 5 years, our business has increased with armed security officers by 30%, meaning that 30% more of our officers are carrying weapons on their jobs. And to Jack's point, the fact when it comes to schools, some places, most places, the only person that can carry a weapon at a school is a police officer. So, that's off the table. But the point of the situation is this: it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on what you do. It depends on the culture of your organization. At the end of the day, there's two things you got to think about. One, you heard the statistics earlier today about how often these incidents actually occur. The risk of something happening to you is really pretty minimal, right? The other part of that is from a general secure perspective. What do you need to do to protect your property? And sometimes it's just showing some level of deterrence. I worked in the banking industry for a few years, and there's a famous video of 3 banks, all of them being robbed. One bank hires an off-duty police officer. The video shows that same criminal 3 weeks later walk into that bank, see the officer, cross the street, and rob the other bank. So sometimes it's just a matter of I don't want to use the term theater, but there is a bit of it, of creating that one level of distinction between you and someplace else. So as it goes to whether or not weapons should be deployed someplace, that's a very complex and detailed situation that the district attorney just laid out, but it's not always the first question you should be asking.
An easier question. Does Delaware County have a mass alert system? Trooper Green?
Delaware County does have a mass alert system. It's called the Delco Alert, which it encourages all the residents, business owners to sign up for it. It is free, and with that Delco Alert, it gives out information to thousands of people when seconds and even minutes count. And they can also, it's not just on a active shooter, it could be for anything, a severe weather that's coming. They can give you information before, during, and even after an incident. So Delaware County does have that in place. It's a great system. And for anyone that's out there that are not signed up, I would strongly encourage them doing it, because that's a good way to get information real quick to what's going on.
And then really one last question, because I appreciate everyone's patience. We've gone over a few minutes, so I thank everyone for that. After hearing about all the information about preparedness and active shooter and understanding what folks need to do, how can we continue to help the community to deal with these issues? Anyone on the panel?
I think events like that we're having here today, number one is education. Education is key. Communicating, making sure everyone is aware as to what's going on out there. And as long as we keep on educating each other and spreading the word with training and seminars, I think is paramount, because, like I said, once you're educated on it and you keep on talking and communicating with each other, it goes a long way.
As I was preparing for this day, I was doing some research, and we do presentations like this all over. And I think we put things in perspective, right? The first recorded incident of a school attack resulted in 10 deaths here in Pennsylvania, in Franklin County in 1764. So we got to put that in perspective, right? The worst ever school attack resulted in more than 40 people being killed in Michigan in 1926. The difference today is, I think, what we see in this room, the resources and the cooperation, the knowledge and the experience that those people didn't have access to. Between the experience in this room, the ability for us to coordinate, that's That's what's going to make the difference going forward. That's what's going to drive those statistics down.
Well, I'd like first to give a round of applause to our panel. Thank you so very much, everyone, for your time and attention today. We want to thank again the partners, Delaware County Council, the Delaware County District Attorney's Office, and the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. Please feel free to continue to check back on our website, and we look forward to seeing you in the fall. Have a good day.